She was found dead in her bedroom, and the killer had walked right past the neighbors unnoticed. North Providence, Rhode Island, February 2007. A quiet apartment building, ordinary in every way, until investigators discovered the horrifying truth. Cynthia McKenna had been suffocated, pillows pressed over her face, a sock forced into her mouth, tissues in her nostrils. It was a meticulously planned act of violence. For years, the case went cold. Every lead dried up. Every clue seemed forgotten. Until one overlooked envelope, tucked away behind a drawer, would finally reveal the killer's identity and unlock a secret that had been hidden for nearly 2 decades. This is the story of Cynthia McKenna.
When detectives entered Cynthia McKenna's apartment, they approached methodically, documenting every detail as if the room itself was a witness. The bed was undisturbed, but closer inspection revealed a chilling scene: 2 pillows pressed over her face, a sock forced into her mouth, tissues in her nostrils. Forensic analysis would later confirm asphyxiation by airway obstruction. Investigators combed the apartment for clues, fingerprints, fibers, the positioning of personal items, and the single envelope tucked behind a drawer. Each detail was photographed, logged, and analyzed. No forced entry, no signs of a struggle. This suggested the perpetrator was known to Cynthia, someone who could enter without drawing attention. Detectives sketched timelines, cross-referenced phone records, and interviewed neighbors for any unusual activity, a methodical approach that would lay the foundation for decades of investigative work. Every trace, no matter how minor, was preserved, because one overlooked clue would ultimately crack the case wide open.
Detectives immediately focused on the most pressing question: who had access to Cynthia McKenna's apartment? With no signs of forced entry, investigators compiled a list of everyone close to her, starting with her ex-partner, Robert J. Corey, Jr., who had a documented history of domestic violence. Officers meticulously reviewed past police reports, including the 2005 domestic violence complaint Cynthia had filed, a case that had been dropped but still provided critical context. Neighbors were interviewed multiple times. Investigators asked about unusual visitors, noises, or suspicious behavior. Small inconsistencies emerged. A neighbor remembered seeing Corey near the building the day before. Another mentioned an unusual delivery of letters. Each tip was logged and cross-referenced. Forensic teams analyzed every piece of evidence from the apartment. The pillows, the sock, and the tissues were collected for trace analysis. Surfaces were swabbed for latent fingerprints, and letters and envelopes were carefully preserved. Detectives created a timeline of Cynthia's last known movements, piecing together phone records, eyewitness accounts, and financial activity. Despite exhaustive efforts, no direct evidence linked Corey to the crime. The investigation hit a wall, leaving detectives with a theory but no proof, and a case that would grow colder with each passing year.
By the mid-2000s, Cynthia McKenna's case had gone cold. Detectives rotated through the file, each reviewing the evidence with fresh eyes, but the same obstacles remained. No DNA match, no eyewitness confirmation, and crucial leads had gone silent. The physical evidence, the pillows, the sock, the tissues, and the envelope, was carefully preserved in the evidence locker, cataloged and periodically checked for degradation. Investigators continued to monitor Corey's activities, checking criminal records and known associates, but nothing definitively tied him to the scene. Meanwhile, forensic science was evolving. DNA testing had improved, but the samples were degraded, making early attempts inconclusive. Every year that passed compounded the challenge. Memories faded, witnesses moved, and technology that might have solved the case in 2007 did not yet exist. Yet the detectives never gave up. They maintained detailed logs of investigative steps, revisited minor clues, and cross-referenced similar cases in the region, hoping to identify patterns that might break the stalemate.
In 2023, Rhode Island's newly formed cold case unit reopened Cynthia McKenna's file. Every piece of preserved evidence was carefully re-examined: the pillows, the sock, the tissues, and most importantly, the envelope that had been tucked away behind a drawer for nearly 16 years. Forensic scientists extracted a partial male DNA profile from the envelope, degraded but still usable with modern techniques. They ran the sample through YSTR analysis, a method that identifies male lineage by tracing the Y chromosome through male relatives. The results were definitive. A familial match pointed directly to Robert J. Corey Jr., Cynthia's ex-partner. The same man investigators had suspected in 2007 but could never link to the crime. Detectives cross-referenced this match with historical records, witness statements, and the timelines they had meticulously constructed. Everything aligned: the DNA, the opportunity, the prior domestic history. The breakthrough was simple in concept, but monumental in consequence. A single, overlooked envelope held the key to solving a murder nearly 2 decades old. After confirming the DNA match, detectives began analyzing Robert J. Corey Jr.'s background and history of criminal behavior. Police reviewed prior domestic violence reports, prior restraining orders, and witness statements from friends, neighbors, and colleagues. Patterns began to emerge. Corey had repeatedly threatened women in his life, often with intimidation or physical violence. Though none of these incidents had led to murder charges before Cynthia McKenna's death. Investigators cross-checked other cold cases in Rhode Island with similar victim profiles, women of similar age, locations near Corey's residences, and patterns of access to their apartments. While Cynthia's case was the only confirmed homicide, the methodology and behaviors suggested a calculated pattern of abuse. Every detail aligned: opportunity, prior history, and the forensic evidence. Corey's actions were not random. The investigation painted a chilling picture of premeditation. Even in death, the forensic footprint left behind, the preserved envelope, DNA, and trace evidence allowed investigators to connect the dots decades later. With the DNA match confirmed, Rhode Island police officially closed Cynthia McKenna's case in 2025. Investigators reviewed every step, every piece of evidence, and every lead from the original 2007 investigation, validating that the breakthrough was the result of meticulous preservation, detailed logs, and modern forensic science. For law enforcement, it was proof that no case is truly unsolvable when procedural rigor and persistence are maintained over decades. For Cynthia's family, it was a bittersweet form of closure. The suspect, Robert J. Corey Jr., had died in 2014, meaning justice in court was impossible. Yet the truth, long hidden in an envelope, buried in time, had finally been uncovered.